Hey, welcome to Cares Everywhere. It's me, Anthony Brown, your host, aka the Ghetto Practitioner. Man, I am like super excited. I'm super stoked. As you guys know, it doesn't take much for me to get all happy, joyous, and free. All I have to do is just wake up in the morning and I am alive. And speaking of being alive, I have a treat for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I have a unique person with a unique personality that is, I would say he's all that in the biscuit, but he'll say, nah, I'm just a humble person trying to do God's will. Let me introduce you to a dear friend of mine, Terence Love. Say hi to everybody, Terry.
How you doing, everybody? Great to be here. Happy to be alive. Sober and in love with God.
Happy, alive, sober, and in love with God. Yes. Oh, we are going to go here. Terry is a musician and a jazz player and, jazz club owner and recovery minded and just all kinds of stuff. But I'm not going to tell you everything because it wouldn't be fair. So I'm going to, as you guys know, introduce and talk and chit chat and just go with it. We freestyle it around here. Ain't no scripts, man, because we don't follow direction anyway. However, Terry, tell us a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, my name's Terence Love, and I was born in Chicago, Illinois. I'm 72 years old, and I was raised in an Irish Catholic family. And to my surprise, there was no alcoholism in that family, which was kind of unusual. Irish Catholic family, no alcoholism. So I grew up in a fairly middle class uh, environment. My parents, stayed all alive and married till my mother died, and we lived in Chicago. Then we moved to Minneapolis, and then back to Chicago, and then we moved to Southern California, Hacienda Heights in San Gabriel Valley, 1963. And just I did the typical thing that any other young adult would do, and I farted around, and I played I played instruments in grammar school all the way through high school and college. I got into rock and roll bands at the time. This is the early '70s, so but I was always raised on jazz music and show tunes and classical music, of course. My father was heavily into classical music, and I remember my father was in World War II, and my uncle, my father's brother, was a fighter pilot also. So he was in the Navy, and I remember my dad was an electrical engineer, so he always tinkered, and he taught us to tinker. He taught us, mechanical things and how to fix cars and how to do all that stuff. And we had a stereo early on, and in that stereo, I remember my dad taught me how to. This is before headphones. This is before stereo headphones, and the Beatles came out with the first stereo album in like 1965, and he taught me to go to Radio Shack, and we took this Magnavox console and turned that was stereo, and we turned it into so we could have stereo headphones, and the rest is history. And I
Okay,
mean,
hang
I
on,
could
hang on.
go on. Well, go
Terry,
ahead.
Terry, let me interject a little bit because this is cool. I'm gonna use some terms. This is groovy. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned a word I haven't heard in a long time. Did you just say Radio Shack?
Yes, Radio Shack. Radio Shack, and later on, a Tandy Corporation, they called it.
And it's so I feel old now because some of our listeners they're like, well, what's a Radio Shack? It was the spot to be to get electronic stuff, and so that's cool. Let me unpack the suitcase because you bought a whole bunch of wardrobe with us today. What's really fascinating because for one thing, you said you came out to California in 1963. I was 2 years old.
Right.
Okay, and you
Now
were
you're
playing
making me feel old.
I hope I get older, but you've been playing instruments since you were young.
Yes.
Now, what's the first instrument you picked up and start playing?
Interestingly enough, it was saxophone. But
Okay.
when I back in the old days, and I don't know if they still do that, they may or not, they would do something, they'd give us a little ear training thing. You know, they would play tunes and they'd two tones and they'd say uh and they say the second one higher or lower, you know, somehow just to judge your aptitude. And then, you know, I guess I was a big guy, you know, I'm 6 foot, 6 foot 1 at my when I before I got to be 72, I was up to 6'1" at one point.
Okay.
But I was a big young adolescent, and so they said you have two choices, tuba or saxophone. And being that my father was into jazz and I was listening to Dexter Gordon and Sonny Rollins and Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and all these people, it was the saxophone. You know, I didn't want to do the tuba. I thought about I thought about the trumpet, but they said, you know, no, saxophone. So that's what I did. We went out to Hollywood to a guy, a famous guy that would repair all the saxophones for people. His name was Sal Bettman. He died maybe 20 years ago, but picked up an old Selmer saxophone, and the rest is history.
Huh. Okay. Now I'm gonna get a little silly because that's who I am. When you got a saxophone, your first one, did you give it a name?
No,
Oh,
no,
you
I did.
didn't. You,
No, I did. I didn't nickname it anything. My focus was, you know, I didn't have a connection with it in that respect. I think for me it was more of I was really intrigued with music because of my the training with the classical music. And like I said, we built this my dad had this big Magnavox console, and so what I did was, and I got these stereo headphones, I would lay because the cable was only that long, so I would lay down on the floor listening to Brahms, to Dvorak, to Mozart, to Haydn, to Beethoven, Mussorgsky. I'd listen to this music on the ground, and I was, you know, some people listen to music in the foreground like I do, or most musicians, and some people in the background. For me, it was just focus on the music. That's the type of person I was. So I I didn't look at music in a playful way at that point. So I think
so
that's why I didn't name it or anything like that.
so when you said you didn't look at music in a playful way, what does that mean? Dissect that a little bit.
You know, how about this? Let's say when there's a movie going on, right?
Okay.
Don't talk to me because that's how I'm that intense on listening to the dialogue. When a song's on or a symphony's on, I'm listening to the bass, I'm listening to the violins, I'm listening to the clarinet. I'm very focused on it. So music was intense. It was fulfilling, but it was intense. So I didn't look at it like some people hear music and they start bouncing up and dancing, and that's what I would call playful. So
Okay.
that's kind of how I looked at it.
Wow. Okay. 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 And so, because I listened, my favorite band is Pink Floyd. Okay. And I like classical music. I listen to Mozart and light scented candles and meditate and all
Right.
that other stuff. But I listen to the different sounds and the different beat, and I allow myself to feel it. And when you internalize that, like this sort of like takes you to a whole different level.
Exactly.
Okay. And so as you're going through listening to your classical music and things like that, where what what type of feeling would you say that it created within you? And did that help you be able to transfer that feeling through the sax onto other people or other audiences?
No, I think that what it did, well, I was immersed in it and it was surreal, and it did bring me to a transcending uh point, you know. And by the way, remind me of when we get into my sobriety and or my path down to sobriety of Pink Floyd 1971 at the Hollywood Bowl. I'll tell you all about it.
Oh, that sounds good.
And there was some transcending there, but it was with the use of hallucinogens
With
too.
a little help.
But anyway, so you know, I wouldn't call it an escape because I felt like I was a pretty comfortable in my skin type person, but I was really it really brought me to a point of almost meditation.
Okay, okay. And so you picked up the songs, you're listening to classical music, you're feeling it, you're playing. Um, did you ever take any lessons or anything?
Yeah, I took lessons, but not much. I was, I'm a I wouldn't say I'm gifted, but I'm the kind of guy that catches on pretty quick. So that in itself kind of was probably my demise. Why I never ended up a real professional to and carried it on because I was good enough to not have to really practice or not have to take lessons from somebody to go out there and gig and all that stuff. But ultimately, I was surpassed because of the methods they teach people with private lessons, and especially there was a guy named Jamie Abersold who back in the old days he used records, actual LPs that he revolutionized the training program of listening and all that to teach. That's why the musicians, these kids today, are on levels like never before. But I just was good enough to be able to get by without trying that art.
Okay, okay, okay. And so, um, were you a hippie?
Oh, heck yeah. Heck
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Heck yeah.
okay.
Tune
Now,
in, turn on, drop out, brother.
exactly, huh? Now that kind of makes it. That sort of makes you dangerous, okay? Because you're
Could be.
you're hippie. I take it you probably had some long hair. You're playing the
Yes.
sax. You got the
Yes.
last name of Love.
Yep.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, thing, things were swinging for me. It, it was
Okay.
great. It was great until it wasn't.
It was great until it wasn't. Okay, and so you're going through when did I mean, I know you're pretty open and I feel comfortable with discussing this because I'm in sobriety, I'm in recovery. I
Right.
believe in the 12 steps. I tell people that all day long because if it
Correct.
wasn't for those steps, I wouldn't be here today. And so um I'm at what point in time did you start partying and when do you think it got just a little bit out of control? Because you said something about Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll preface this with saying that yes, I'm sober today, but for the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous, over 38 years of continuous.
Woo!
Yeah, May 23rd, 1988, and the warning signs were there in high school,
Okay.
but like I said, it was great till it wasn't great anymore, and in my own experience, it was a long, arduous road down from because, like I said, it was 1988 when I got sober, and I graduated high school in '72. So there was a lot of experimental things that went on, and but the truth be said, it wasn't till I was 26, I think, or I can't remember the when it was that I actually tried to get sober, and it took me 6.5 years of going in and out, and I did being growing up in the late '60s and being a hippie and all that. There was a lot of marijuana, there was a lot of hallucinogens, a lot of quaaludes, downers, and whites, and speed, and I didn't get into heroin, I didn't get into injecting things like that. I did, you know, I didn't ever smoke cocaine through a car antenna, you
I
know.
did.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Folks, I know Anthony, and I've known him for 20 years or so. But, I never, I guess I didn't end up on the street. I ended up in a car for a couple of months, and, but I was always somehow, too slippery to get caught by the police, too slippery. I was into peddling it. So I was selling pot and all that stuff. So I could afford to have somebody else drive me places or do whatever. So I had people underneath me doing my dirty work. So I didn't get really busted that way. But it was bad early on, but I did not realize that till I was beat into that state of reasonableness.
Mhm.
There was I took it down very far down the path to get there. Not something that I'm proud of, and not something that uh, well, let's just say that I didn't realize alcohol and drugs could defeat me,
Mm.
and that's where that's the truth of what happened was that it defeated me, and nothing ever changed until I surrendered, and and I asked for God's help in this matter. And yeah, it's I'm forever blessed and grateful today because of that. But there was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it, but I think my ignorance to what it was really like. And I think I started this out by saying there was no alcoholism in my family. So I
Mm.
had no concept of what even the person that says, "Oh, the guy with the brown bag on the corner that's drinking, the guy that's smoking crack out of a car antenna." That's the the definition of a loser, a guy that's a drunk, a guy that's a drug addict, whatever. I didn't see that in my thing. So I was not that I was shielded from it or I was in any way dumb, but it just was not my experience. As a matter of fact, as I sought lower companionship when things got bad, I ended up going with people that were worse off than me because it didn't feel like it was that bad. And I didn't even know that's what I was doing. All I knew is that I felt comfortable if I was here and I appeared to be okay. And
Mm.
ultimately, at the end, I was isolated, dangerously antisocial in a bathroom with my bottle or whatever, just because all I was doing there was trying to get enough in me to be able to go out there and appear like nothing was wrong. So an
Mhm.
appearance of that things were good, it was obviously important to me, and I don't feel like I was trying to hide it, but I just didn't realize the full impact of what alcoholism and drug addiction was.
Mm. And so as you're going and drinking and life starts to go downhill and to the point where you're by yourself and you're drinking, um I'm not gonna put words in your mouth, but you're drinking and there's a bottle around. Okay. Um how far in your career as a sax player, and you say you play with bands, how far up did you go?
Well, just playing in local gigs in Southern California, and I can tell you probably one of the uh, I couldn't define this as the reason that I stopped, but it was a defining moment for me of that this just isn't really going to make it for me, and I think that obviously my impairment from drugs and alcohol got in the way. And I remember I was asked by this guy who's a band member of mine that he was playing with this other vocalist somewhere in Trabuco Hills or out in the valley somewhere. And I went there and I brought a bunch of friends. Hey, I'm going to sit in with this band, blah blah blah. They never called me. They never called me to get up there. And my friends are, I'm telling, when are you going up? I don't know. Well, he will, he will. And then at the end, I said, what's the deal? I'm here with my sax. He goes, they just didn't think you were going to be able to make it.
Oh
That you
wow.
could that you did. So it kind of just it was a moment of reality. And once again, what I would do, just like anything, I have other friends that I've still yet to abuse. So I
Mm.
moved on to the next set of lower companions that I felt better about. Well, I was very uncomfortable in situations where there are people that are smarter, brighter, more with it, more money, more this, more that than me. So I just moved on to the next one. I was like a chameleon of sorts.
Huh. Interesting. And throughout all of this, I know you opened up a club.
Yes.
Okay. And did you do that when you were drinking or when you got sober?
No, I was sober. Okay, so what happened was, and it's kind of funny that you would say this, is that I ran into somebody in 1992, two guys that I actually went to high school with. Excuse me, let me get a drink. And one guy was playing bass, and the other guy was playing drums. Someone that I knew from way, way back. And this is 92, so I was already 4 years sober. And they said, "Hey, we're starting we're going to start a band." So I went and started playing with them. And then one of the guys, Rocky, said, we should really, open a club, because he was into jazz as I was into jazz. And, at this time, not playing for so many years, I wasn't able to go out and gig and do a jazz gig. It was going to be like a rock gig or whatever. But so we just gathered our stuff together. And one of the guys, John, was a contractor. So he says, "You know what? You've got," and I have all this. In the meantime, what I had done was a lot of restaurant management work, bartending, and all of this stuff. And that's what I did in my final days of drinking. Was before I got sober, was bartending and restaurant managing for Stuart Anderson's Black Angus, the Red Onion, all sorts of chains and things like that. So I had all of this experience. He said, "You run the place. John will build it, and Rocky will help and invest some money. I put in the most amount of money. We put it all together and built it in 1994. And I was sober, so I built a jazz club with alcohol in downtown Fullerton before it had exploded to what it is now. And within 1 month, the contractor guy says, "I want out." I said, "Why?" Because he didn't want to work. He thought he was just going to build it, and he was going to get quarterly checks. The other guy had a full-time job, and I'm stuck there working 18 hours a day. So I paid off the two guys within 3 months of it, and it became mine whole. And I turned it into one of the greatest jazz clubs on the West Coast, and it perpetuated for 23 years.
Nice. What was the name of your club?
Steamers, Steamers Jazz Club.
Steamers. Okay. And so here you're a club owner, you're a sax player in recovery, everything's doing good. How by maintaining all of that, how do you think do you think, or let me change that. Do you think there's a correlation between working the steps and building a good business?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first, and just let me preface this also with my jazz club was catty corner to the Fullerton Alano Club. So, so I literally could walk to there. And on the other side, from Mo's Music, who was a big music place that had been there since the 50s, and Roger and Mo were both program people, and they had meetings there all the time. So I was surrounded by a great sobriety community. I had the business sense anyway. I'm taking a risk. I've been blessed to have the same sponsor for over 38 years. I'm blessed, and I had the same AA sponsor who taught me pretty much, he said, "You can do anything you want as long as you're willing to pay the price."
Mm.
So, I quickly learned what the price of farting around was all about. I just, and he said, lack of power, that's my dilemma. I must learn to rely on a power greater than myself. And so it was a monumental task to take on, but so was sobriety. And,
And
and, I realized the, what the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me how to be humble. It's taught me that I'm not in charge. It taught me that there's hope. It taught me that nothing it can't be overcome. You know,
I agree with you 100% because I come from literally from Park Bench to Park Avenue.
that's
Oh, hey,
right.
that's a book plug.
That's right.
but
Absolutely.
it's cool, and I'm glad you're
I
open with
bought
it.
I on the first edition. I bought one of those.
I gotta thank you. it's fascinating how, and I appreciate you being open with your sobriety, because there's a lot of people out there that want to get sober and wonder, well, if I get sober, what can I do? Well, if you get sober, who knows? If your passion is being an entrepreneur and opening up a club, there's other people out there that has done it,
Right.
you know. But as you said, sometimes it's important, especially in the beginning, that you stick close to the pack,
Absolutely.
you know, and
Absolutely.
attend a bunch of meetings. So let's jump into this sobriety. Let's jump into the sobriety wagon and ride it down the road a little bit. Okay,
Certainly.
as you have been sober, what do you think in the beginning? What do you think was? What did you expect from sobriety? How did you even come into sobriety?
Well, I first came to the program in 1982 at a club called Thursdays in Sunset Beach. I
Been
was
there.
bartending at a place called Hennessy's in downtown Seal Beach with my girlfriend, who was a server, and we were doing it up. We were just doing it up, the drinking and drugging and living down on Main Street there and partying, and it was just things were falling apart. So what it,
He was living it up and things was falling apart.
they're living the life at the beach, and it's falling apart, and things started to fray between us, and we said we got to do something about this. And somehow, it wasn't me. It certainly wasn't me, because, like I said, I had no concept of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no alcoholism in my family, nothing like that. So um, my girlfriend or fiance, I don't even remember what she was at this time, but she said, "Let's go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous," because she had somebody she knew in her family that did it. So we go over to this place, which is right down the street, and just had opened up. It literally had just opened up, and it's still there today. And it was a round table, and of course they did the opening prayer, which I have never had a problem with God. I had never had any problem with belief and all that stuff, and it's not till much later that I learned to trust in God, and to turn it over to him. But at that time, so it was like kumbaya. Everybody's holding hands, everybody's having a good time, they're praying, and I thought I was just going there to find out, how to deal with my life, because I'm partying a lot. I never knew about abstinence. I didn't know anything about steps. I didn't know about inventories or any of that. So what happened was, we did a roundtable introduction. I'm Terry. I'm an alcoholic, and she's Connie. And at the cigarette break at the end, at the break, I'm sorry, in between, the guy comes up to me, and they knew I was new. Of course, when somebody's new,
Fresh.
yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and and the guy says, "Hey, you just screwed up your drinking for the rest of your life." And I thought, what is he talking about? Well,
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks later, I'm in Redgate Memorial detox. That's how I think God worked in my life, because at that moment I had no concept of what it was like. And within 3 weeks of me identifying as an alcoholic in front of 40 other people, I'm in a rehab because I could not handle it. And then what had happened was, I wish I could say I got sober after that, but it was 6.5 years of in and out and in and out, and just trying it myself and doing everything possible, but full surrender.
Mm,
Who wants to admit utter defeat?
you're right.
Book talks
Practically
about
no one.
practically no one, and that book talks about it. It says that the ex problem drinker, armed with the facts about himself, can generally win the confidence of another alcoholic in just a few short hours. And until that happens, little or nothing's done. And so, people were just saying what they weren't saying, "Hey, Terry, you can't do this and get up and do it." They're just saying, "Hey, this is what it was like for me. This is what I did, and this is what I'm doing today." And
Right.
it was attractive to me.
Okay, okay. And so you got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. Uh, there's a saying, what is a head full of AA and a belly full of booze don't mix.
Right.
And that's a guarantee. For those of you out there listening, let me tell you, once you get a taste of sobriety, your drinking it's ruined. Okay, it's trust me, it's ruined. And so Here you finally went and did some research and development. It didn't work. You come back. You caught the bug. You drank the coffee, and you start going to meetings. Next thing you know, you discover that there's a different life,
Right.
and it must have been so good that you stuck with it because you've been around for what 48 years or 38 years.
38 years,
You've
38
been
years.
around. You've
But
been around 38 years, so something happened. And so as you're enjoying, I call it enjoyment because it's a whole hell of a lot better than where I come from, even though it's work to be done. You know, for me, the program of recovery isn't just like a plane taking off smooth. It's like a bumblebee up and down. That's just the way it is. But I'm able to handle the ups and downs a lot better. I'm able to show up to deal with life on life terms. And that's one of the gifts I feel I got from the program. And so you're involved in a program, you're running a club, everything's just moving the way everything should be moving. And what do you think? What do you think is the best thing that you've been given since you've been sober, or the best experience you had since you've been sober?
um the best experience since I've been sober, well,
Yeah.
I would say, well, number one is this relationship with God.
Okay.
Uh, Number two, of course, sustenance. I'm alive. I'm
Mm.
healthy. And but as a gift, that something I would, and we always talk about, not in our wildest dreams that we'd have it, was the marriage to a beautiful woman, also in the program, with that's been sober longer than me even, and Donna also, and it's a life for the last almost 9 years that has been shared on the same journey, with respect to each other, and also learning new things, learning new ways to live, new ideas and coping skills. It's one thing to just be with yourself, and it's another thing to, like, becoming a parent. I had a son with my first marriage, and that was great, and I'm still fantastic relationship with him and my his mother, but that didn't work out ultimately with the business, etc. But I've continued to stay sober and be work the steps. See, the other thing that my sponsor says is, read the book and study the people. And
You
he
taught me
taught
that
me.
one. You taught me that saying.
I taught to that one. Yes,
Yes,
I
you
taught.
did.
Read the book and study the
Thank
people.
you.
and
Yeah.
and he had me in a big book study, and I continue to go. As a matter of fact, Don and I go every Wednesday to one up here in Anaheim Hills, and it's the book. It's like, if you're or the Bible, it's when you study what is a way of life, and you perpetuate that, and you believe in it, and you put your faith in it, chances are it's going to work. And this is what's happened with us. And in this almost 9 years, there's never been a separation. There's never been more than, even in what I would call the biggest spat we ever had, that may have lasted an hour or something. It's like, and none of these, our 12 and 12, for those of you, I don't know who's listening, but for those of you, we have our big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in that book, it explains the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps of recovery. And then there's an accompanying book called the 12 Steps and 12 Tradition, which talks about how these work, etc. And it goes to more length about the 12 steps. And in that 10 step, it talks about how, you know, we at the end of the night, we review what went on.
Uh,
Excuse me. We evaluate what we are like to ourselves, what we are like to others, um, and how we can correct that. Because, I would say, kind of like a constant check of ourselves. If you don't maintain, changing your oil, your car's going to break down ultimately. And if you don't maintain your sobriety by looking at yourself, and one of the things that it talks about is that none of us are very keen at taking an accurate self appraisal. a
Hmm.
truly accurate self appraisal. I may look at myself and go, man, I want to appear to be the greatest guy. I want to appear to be the nicest man, the most fair. I want people to talk about me, this and that. But the truth is, I don't know if I can cuss here or whatever, but
Go ahead.
I can be an asshole and I can be a jerk. And sometimes that happens. And I have to look at that self and do a square look at myself and say, what could I have done better? Now, I'm nowhere near perfect. I'm nowhere near even great, but at least I have the awareness. That's what AA has taught me. And that's what my sponsor taught me to do. Read that book and study the people and watch who's doing what you like and try to do what they do. And he said, I'm not going to tell you to go to 4 meetings a week. I'm not going to tell you to go to 8 meetings a week. I'm not going to tell you to read pages 63 to 65. I'm not going to tell you any of that stuff. You want to hear somebody else talk about it and do it yourself, right on. But, you know what to do. The book gives you clear cut directions on how to recover here.
Okay, okay. And it's really fascinating because it sounds like the 10th step on a daily inventory helps your relationship solidify a little bit. Just
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
So
you know, it, you know, uh, I can tell you talked about what is one of the most wonderful things in the world, in my life, and how that feeling of love and sharing that with your wife and your partner or whatever it may be. What's an awful thing is sitting there laying next to that person you love and stewing in silent scorn or emotional uh, like an emotional hangover. That's terrible, and it becomes evident when you're side by side with someone else that shares the same thing. That's why this fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is so important, because we go to these meetings and we see others, and sometimes they're not on their best behavior, and sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not, but we have to be there for them. That's why Anthony, you and I 20 years later are still here.
mm, that I agree with you
I think
100%.
22 years it's been, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. It has been a while, and I do know your wife, and she is a gem. You got lucky, buddy. I'm telling you,
Yes.
you got lucky. I'm calling you on it right now. Okay,
She's
you
a
got lucky. But what's really cool is because I know one of the traditions says a public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion.
Yeah.
And you can say anything, but I'm going to watch what you do. And when I sit back and I watch not just you but Don as well, and I watch you guys interact with one another, and then I hear you share some of the secrets on how to keep that going. I'm like, well, I want some of that too. And it's really good. And I love the friendship we have.
Yeah.
I
If let me interject, this is kind of a funny story, because so Anthony, you and I have known each other for 22, 23 years. All
mhm.
right. Your neighbor, this is in Orange, Ron Kobayashi, is a piano player who lives in your complex. There is a piano player who played, and I've known for 35 years, played at the club. Ryan, one of my guys that I sponsor for the last 20 years, lives across the street. So you three are all in this cul-de-sac, and then I meet Donna, my wife, now after all of this, and we're all four are close, and it's just a wonderful thing.
It was, and I miss it. You know,
Yeah.
I
You're
miss
always
it.
welcome here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's another gift for me from the program is people welcome me these days because I was that description of the person you said in the beginning, drank wine out of a brown paper bag, dirty, disheveled, smoking crack out of a car antenna. People didn't call me Anthony, they said him. It's like, oh, that's
Ah,
him, you know. And now people is like, hey, we're glad to see you. Come on back, and then that's a good feeling, you know, to feel that you belong or be part of something. And I attribute that to the program
right.
because I came and I discovered a guy that's still in the medical business that walks with me as my best friend, and that God allows me to meet other people within that universe. And so that is so cool. I'm so glad that we got to hang out and chit chat and stuff like that. Let me let me go here, and I'm gonna land this plane eventually. One thing I noticed recently that you have a tendency to pick up a camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Now,
I've always been, I have some here. I've always been a photographer. Like I said, my father put a Contaflex, a Zeiss Icon Contaflex in my hand at 9 years old, and I have been shooting since, primarily film. And when I opened the club, I shot a lot of film there, and then when digital came in 2001, I think, then I started shooting digital and have never sold a camera. I've pretty much collected them all, and I Donna's over there, so I can't really say how many I know. I have something probably like 400 or 500, maybe 600 cameras. I literally, I just collect. I have antique ones. I've got large format. I've got, the kind you put the hood over you and all of that stuff. And I mean, I'm a pretty good photographer, and I did it professionally for quite a while. And I also have done it for a lot of Grammy Award winning artists and their CD covers and all that stuff. So the latest one was Arturo Sandoval, 10 times Grammy Award winner
wow.
on his latest album. Yeah.
Well, and here I'm thinking, all you do is just take pictures of Donna all over the place.
Well, I do take a lot of shots of Don. Well, listen, when your wife looks like that and we travel a lot. So that's what, I don't care how good the Eiffel Tower looks. With Donna next to it, it looks better, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is so cool, and so yeah, it's you gave us a whole lot of stuff to think about, and this interview with you definitely, and I want people to understand and to get, if anything you get from this show today, folks, I want you to get how the program can make you an attractive person, just spiritually, emotionally. You know, you can achieve things, and all you have to do is discover that it's a lot easier to surrender the stuff that's holding you back. And I always tell people, if you're not moving forward, look behind you and see what's holding you back.
Right.
There is so much out there, and all you had to do, you did the same thing I did in the beginning. I just walked into a room full of strangers.
Right.
You don't even have to say nothing, just show up. And you get recognized, you get to look, you get the dust knocked off, and next thing you know, you lead a life full of adventure, and you went one step further than me. You found a wonderful wife that you can take pictures of. Me, I
Your
have a
time will,
I have
your
a
time
stuffed rabbit, okay?
Your
But
your time's gonna come, but one thing I always say too, Anthony, is that the closed mouth doesn't get fed. If I didn't say what's going on with me, I'd be dead. A lot of people hold that stuff in. A lot of people, and that is blocking you not only from letting someone else help you, but the Spirit of the Lord. And that's where for me, my greatest advice, and I try not to give advice to people, but I would just say, turn it over, let it go, and let people know how you feel, good, bad, or indifferent.
yes, good advice, good advice. Okay, I'm gonna close with something silly because I can't help myself.
Sure.
Now, you already identified, and I agree with you, and probably everybody that knows you too. You have a wonderful woman that has a really good heart, and definitely beautiful. Now, how did what was the line that a smooth jazz player used to get Donna's attention?
Well, actually, what did we had seen each other a few times, and Donna, as in addition to being very friendly, is also having a lot of years of sobriety, is confident, and she learns about eye contact. What, one thing that when I was using and drinking and all that, I didn't want to look at people. But you can tell when a person is confident when they look in your eye, they have nothing to hide or anything like that. So I found an attraction there. And surprisingly enough, a woman, I don't know if you should know her, Charlotte, who has passed since.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, who used to have a sobriety store and had workshops and all that, was a mutual friend of ours. And we have lots of mutual friends that we never knew for all these years, 30 some years, that we now, of course, have. But it was her birthday, and she was at the club, and Charlotte was here. Donna walked up. I'm here. We're talking. Next thing you know, she asked me if I want to go to coffee. No, it was me that I asked. And the
Okay.
first day we go out, the first time we go out to dinner, it happens to be there's a photo walk in the area, and I have my camera. So from the very beginning, she's been getting her pictures taken of her. So
Okay. So for all of us novice out here,
yeah,
the secret to getting a woman is just walk around with a camera.
no,
Okay.
to thine own self be true. To thine own
Okay.
be true. And it
Just
doesn't hurt having a last name of Love,
right. And your in your voice, you just got that voice, man. You know. I mean, and again, absolutely insist on enjoying life, and I can see it where you can go. My name is Terry Love.
Yeah.
Donna give you the eye. You're like, anyway, I could go on and on ad infinitum. Dude, I appreciate you coming on our show today, Terry. I appreciate you're sharing your sobriety openly, your love of God, your passion for music. I just am grateful that I've been blessed to have people like you cross my path. I really appreciate you, man.
And I appreciate you too, Anthony, and I'm very proud of you because I've seen you from that guy with like 4 or 5 years of sobriety come and write your book and your interviews with Dr. Drew and all these people and your the manor, the Brown Manor, all of this stuff. I've watched you go from this guy on a park bench
Mm.
to the nursing and to where you're at now, and I'll do anything to help you, my friend.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, folks, that's all the time we got for today. I hate to land this plane, but I can't fly forever. Stay tuned next time for Cares Everywhere. And until then, peace, love, and enjoy yourself. Thank you again, Terry. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you.